I was watching an operation called SGT Report. Been listening to Sean and what he does for a really long time. He's kind of one of the guys that were out there first in the whole YouTube
Yep.
truth or alternative media. So you know the operation.
Yes.
It's some and I was and the guy was very legit. And at some point he decides to go like flat Earth.
Right.
And I do like the way the guy expressed the globe as we're told denier, right? So he's like, something stinks, but I'm not really prepared to jump into flat Earth thing, right? So, and he would bring these characters out that became more and more ridiculous, and then then they got like organized ridiculous to the point where they were like, okay, well, here's what's going on, and they were like selling apps, right? And they were selling
Right.
T-shirts and merchandising and things like that. And I was like, okay, wow.
Mm.
So I got to the whole thing is fascinating to me. And I'm not taking a position on this. I'm not saying this. I'm not saying that we live in a dome, or a terrarium, or we're in a bubble at the zoo, and a thumbnail of Ulysses. I don't know. I've never been up there, and so I'm not really trying to make this kind of like this flat Earth globe, heliocentric yes or no kind of thing. I just found some elements of the whole conversation just fascinating. Like, can somebody please do the damn math? And
Right.
they banty around all of these ideas and all these concepts. I'm like, well, can we just take a few minutes with it and see, is there anything to, like, add to the conversation? So, here we have the stereotypical Earth. And
Right.
what we understand is, the picture of our blue marble, right?
NASA CGI.
Sure. Yeah, or
Right.
whatever it is, right? And I don't.
Who invented it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I haven't been there myself personally.
Right.
So okay, so they're telling us this. They're saying the diameter of the Earth is 7,917.5
Mm-hmm.
miles. The diameter being the distance across, not the distance around. So it's not the circumference; it's the diameter. And I'm not, I'm just trying to kind of like clarify all the terms, right? So
Gotcha.
one half of the diameter of a circle, okay, is the radius. So in this case, half of the diameter of the Earth being 3,958.75 miles. Okay,
Right.
so it's going to be a little pieces here and there, but it'll all kind of come together. So here you have the Pythagorean theorem. Proves a right triangle. Okay, that's the theorem itself written out basically correctly, and then the triangle with a little square in the bottom showing that it's an exact 90 degrees. Okay, so going forward, you've got a circle and a triangle. Okay, to kind of like demonstrate the geometry of this whole thing. Right, so the circle being obviously the diameter of the Earth, and the triangle being a right triangle from the radius of the center of the Earth. Okay, so what this is showing? Okay, we'll add some sides to it. Okay, ABC already been chewed, but so the B leg obviously it's hyper distorted, and you'll see what I mean. And we're calling A the radius the radius of the Earth, and then we're calling B 1 mile. So obviously this is not the scale. Okay, but
Right.
it's hyper exaggerated so you can see it graphically. All right, so here you have ABC as the sides of the triangle, and that's leg A, leg B, and the hypotenuse is C. Okay, and then we're going to add some points to it. So I got a point in each of the vertices, and then I got a point where the hypotenuse intersects with the circle behind it. Okay, so this representation of C equals the square root of A squared plus B squared, the Pythagorean, well, that's one of the Pythagorean prove ups, can also be expressed this way. Okay, as in C equals, that's the same
Right.
as I just showed you. That's A squared. The other way it can be expressed as A squared plus B squared equals C squared. In
Right.
construction, it was the magic 345 number, right? So you could take 3 squared plus 4 squared plus 5 equals 5 squared, and then just apply, let's say, 12 inches to it. So it's 36, 48, and 60. Or if it's
Yeah.
feet, it's 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet. And that's how you would square any space. So if you needed to, lay out a wall and you have your baseline, then you square the room out, and there's your building, right? So
Mm-hmm.
running forward, you prove the rest of it out by saying 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, and the sum of that's a true statement. Okay, so running the whole thing forward, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to kind of figure out the slope. In other words, how much curve is there? So when you run all these numbers out, you wind up with this. I know this is a little gonzo. It's a little hard to read like this, but so you
Mm-hmm.
see the A leg. The A leg being the 3,958 miles. Okay, that's the
Right.
radius from the center to the outside edge. And then you have the C being the hypotenuse, B being 1 mile. Okay, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to calculate the curve per mile. So you run
Mm-hmm.
this thing out and you take A and you multiply it by itself and you come away with 15,671,701, and I stopped at 12 decimal points. It goes further than that, but that was enough to demonstrate what's it was enough to demonstrate a reference of the curvature. Okay, and
Okay.
the square of 1 obviously is 1. So when you need to find C, which is the hypotenuse, okay, then you square root it, and you come back with 3,958 with that long decimal, and then you subtract the A from the C. And what that does is that shows you, oops, next one. What that shows you is you see how the C hypotenuse has 2 segments. So the longer segment is the same as the A segment. The shorter segment
Right.
is the difference. And how that works out is when you get down to the bottom of it, you see the sum. Once you do all the math all the way down, you come out to 8.00262 inches per mile. Now, just let that ruminate for a minute. So, if you were on the salt, just as what's like the flattest place you could think of, maybe would like what be the Salt Flats in Utah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Let's say something like that, right? So, if you were standing out on the Salt Flats and you were looking a mile in one direction, could you determine it had a variance of 8 inches?
Nah.
Right. It's like now. So now add terrain to that. Okay, it's going to be really difficult to get
Right.
to get that across. Okay, so the across the water stuff. Okay, they have the across the water stuff as well. Look, we can see this tower on the other side of the lake. I'm like, well, yeah, because it's got terrain, and if you built a berm up, it can still be flat enough to hold the lake. So even
Right.
if it's on a curved object, the topography can still be in such a way that the water will stay in the bowl of the lake, dude. I'm just
Right.
saying, that's kind of how it is, right? So it becomes like a container to hold the water, okay, so to speak. All right. So and then add in optics, and which I know very little about. Just then when you add the parabolic and refractory this and the depth of field and all the I have no idea what the impact of the thermal situation looking through certain cameras, so and I know that even in like in the fields of construction that I don't know what a really long survey is. Like, what's a
Right.
really long? So, I mean, most of the city of Chicago was laid out in what's called rods and chains. Literally, a rod and a chain that was physically like
Wow.
this. This is the thing, right? So it's
Right.
like this is like the master thing, and you had a department of the city that was the planning commission that had the system for the rods and the chains, right?
Goodness,
So
my
it was
goodness.
literally a physical measurement, which then becomes obviously something else. But what's a really long laser shot? If you were going to do a line of sight straight out laser shot, what's a long distance, right? So it's
Right.
highly suspect, and that's kind of what I'm basically getting across here is that it, the whole like optical analysis, and just this idea that you can somehow really surmise all of this with these kind of layman's like approaches. I don't
Right.
think it's doable. I think it's a fool's errand, and I
I
think yeah, I think very possibly the whole point was the fool's errand, and it's like, how do you get, how do you get data out? Well, you got to put data in, and you start to see these groups coalesce into, well, okay, the flat Earth terrarium guys are always Christians, right? And it's like they're steeped in it, right? And they they know Bible passages, and it's like, wow, you guys are deep in this thing, and
Right.
and they kind of seem to, they kind of like interlock with each other, and I think there's certainly amazing demonstrations that I've seen that are like, wow, I'm like that. That'll really make you think some things through. I've not been up there. I've not
Right.
got a look around, and I'm not sure that even if you are looking out of a vessel window at 250 miles or whatever up, just the atmospheric optics might do funny things.
Right.
So I don't really have, and I'm like I just, and then people say these contrary things about it, and I'm like, okay, well, can you like quantify what you just said? I'm like, even the calculation that I just demonstrated with using this right here is wrong, and because this is based on a set of like absolute absurdities. Because first of all, your eyeballs on the ground, and you're standing there, your eyes are 4 to 5 feet off the ground, so your entire line of sight is different than this represents. So, and then there's the over the horizon thing, because you're not really looking at it from this point. The apex of the curve is located. So even this approach is inaccurate. It's very inaccurate, but it's I put this out here as a demonstration that even with this crudity, if that's a word, well, it is now. Um, that
Right.
excuse me, it demonstrates that it's working out to be about 8 inches per mile, and that would be near to impossible to
Right.
really get the gist of with what you were given as far as human eyesight. So I even went so far as to ask my son, like, what's the longest sniper shot ever? And okay, so you've got drop based on gravity or whatever the hell they call it. I'm like, and he said, well, I don't know. There might be. He didn't know, and I was, gotcha. And so the question was, how far was the longest rifle shot, and how was it calculated? Like, did you? He's like, well, probably about 2 miles. And I said, well, at 2 miles, based on my calculation, that's 16 inches of drop.
Mhm.
Uneven. So, irregardless, even if that's an absurd calculation or the method is completely wrong, and which I'm sure it is. I do hylics and rhetoric. I'm not really a scientist. So, I mean, even with that being inaccurate, is there compensation for that aside from the gravity of a falling bullet over time? You know how many feet, and you know the fall off, right? So you know if it's going to travel 6,000 feet, it's going to drop 2 inches, right? So these guys know that they know the science of ballistics. So I've not really got that deep into this topic. My assessment is that it almost seems like, and these two things can exist in the same space. That yes, the moon landings were faked, and this
Right.
is a method to basically draw all the energy away from that conversation and basically just siphon off any kind of intellectual or mental energy that would really go to really finishing that topic off.
Right.
And because that 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 not being true basically destroys America as a concept. I mean, that we did not go to the moon, that the moon landing was faked, is basically the utter. It's the end of America. It's over at that point. I mean,
Yeah.
if that's definitively proved, that the whole concept of American greatness is just completely done. And and
Right.
and there's so many people that psychologically could absolutely not handle that. There's just no way.
I don't understand why, but yeah.
Well, because they went and died in wars for it. I mean,
Well,
you know, I mean
yeah.
that'll
Well,
cramp your style a little bit. When you're out there
yeah.
killing. I mean, think about it. They've stitched up the situation where they've convinced people to go out and kill other people.
I
right?
know. Well, I'm quite sure that most military people, if they knew the half of it, would probably not feel great.
Right. Right. So again, but just demonstrating that even with this rather yucked up approach, and these funky graphics and this swell piece of work over here, um, it's a fool's errand. That's essentially how I see this. Is that the flat Earth conundrum interjected into social media is a ruse. It's this, very possibly the CIA, or the Brookings
That shit gotta
Institute, or,
stop.
or whoever, basically putting out information so that they can assess how it's absorbed and psychologically dealt with. And it's like probing. It's like probing the wire.
Also make people look like fools. They're very smart.
Yeah, which is part of the whole process. So I don't. But having said that, I have seen quite a bit of stuff that shows you can actually have seasonal cycles, and you can have the terrarium does work.
Mm-hmm.
The terrarium does work. You can actually demonstrate luminaries moving around in seasonal cycles, and people have done some incredible stuff with it.
Right.
But I've never really seen anybody actually lay out hard math. And I just found it very alarming that people are just banting all this crap around. And it's like, can we get some Harvard guys out here or something? Can
Oh,
we
I
get?
wouldn't trust them anyway.
Well, I mean, but
I mean,
but you would trust the math though, and
mm,
and and
well, yeah,
and just to demonstrate that Archimedes level intellect. I mean, look, if you're professing to be this I know person, right? This expertise guy, this professor, right? You professor, you know shit, right? I mean, if that's where you're at, then I would expect you should be able to do math in front of me at a level that would baffle me,
well, I
which
think
probably wouldn't take much.
most of the flat Earth people that I observe are meme and video warriors, and they don't, with the exception of the some being a part of that whole Q movement when that was the fad. Um, they did that as well. But yeah, it's always Christian stuff or it's memes and videos, and rarely do they engage other than attacking others. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's
which
something to
comes
all
off.
of this. It's almost cultish, kind of like the Q thing.
Well, it sounds very
Um,
bot driven. I mean, what you
right.
what you describe wouldn't be hard to drive. It wouldn't be hard to assemble a AI engine to do those
Well,
things.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of that going on. A lot of these people I happen to be friendly with, and I know they're not bots. They have families and jobs and things. Um, but
No,
yeah,
no,
there's
I mean in reference to like how the memes are generated and
Mhm.
how the topics get inserted into social
Right,
media, could very absolutely be AI driven.
right,
There's no question about that. That's really what I think Q is. Is I my estimate is Q is essentially the same thing as flat Earth in that
yeah,
in that
yes,
is it is
yes,
a probing. It's like a psych test.
yeah,
It's like in Blade Runner, when they're trying to test the robots,
right. Well,
if they're gonna flip out and kill everybody on Alpha
I
Centauri,
think that was 2023, wasn't it? That movie,
Oh yeah, it's
right?
oh yeah.
So yeah, nothing's off the table.
No, no, nothing's off the table. That's
Not
for sure.
anymore.
Yeah, so that's kind of my observation about it, and I'm looking at these topics, and I'm looking, and I just trying to apply some like linear thinking to them, and some logic
Right.
and reason, and it just doesn't shake out. It's like it didn't seem right at first, and I'm like, man, this thing's got a lot of traction, and I'm like, this seemed like it should have been maybe a dismissed absurdity, and it's like, wow, it's like there's groups and it's like there's a lot of energy going off this direction. And then I was like, my God, you people actually you rented a convention center for a flat Earth meeting,
Yeah, and there is that. I mean, this is a big thing.
right? And I was like, wow.
For what?
I'm like, you guys are like out there. I mean, do you guys have a secret handshake? Tell me do you guys have lunch boxes? You
But there again, it's another movement, for lack of better words, that has a mixture of truths and other things. I don't think that we've gone to the moon. It's just me. I've seen enough that I don't believe it. And I've seen videos, many of them, uh, where uh, like a regular Joe Blow, sends a rocket up and it seems to hit something when it gets up a certain amount.
yeah,
And I've also seen videos where there was one out of California, shoot, 2, 3 weeks ago, and I saw someone explain it, and it looked this way to me as well. And I've seen others explain other videos that look like this, but it's like if there is a dome, it looks like it got through the dome and then was going through water, similar to like a. If you see, have you ever seen a video of a bullet going through water?
oh yeah. I mean,
It
I've
looks the same. Anyway, so I know I'm kind of strange.
no, no,
But
no, no.
I've seen the NASA guys say that it's all CGI. I've seen a NASA guy say
Well,
we've lost the technology
right. Well, let's
about going to the moon. Give me
well,
a fucking break.
let's
Excuse
hey,
my French.
even beyond that. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Something's not making sense. I'm like, so hang on. So like when I was 4 years old, you guys put some cats on the moon with a golf cart when I was 4 years old, right?
Right.
You were up there doing this amazing stuff,
I was negative
and
4 days.
and then and then and then you decided to make everything else that couldn't do it. How did you? So you made worse crap later. So basically,
Right.
so you made the space shuttle, but you made some shit that wouldn't go to the moon. So you go to the moon, and then stop going to the moon, and just like make shit that can't go to the moon. What you guys are working backwards here.
Yeah, did you see Buzz Aldrin talk to that little African American 8-year-old girl?
Buzz
He
Aldrin is
admitted
high as a fucking kite. That's a
he's a
Boone's
he's a
Farm
nut.
drinking. That's a Boone's
And
Farm drinking old man there.
dude, have you seen them? Did you see them when they were first interviewed after all that? They look like somebody shot their dog.
Oh man, you know what? Okay, here's what the
What the
word.
fuck was that?
Here's
I
the
mean, how
word.
stoked would you be if you had really just gone to the freaking moon?
Stoked is another good word.
I mean, come on. I'm just going on a fucking roller coaster for me. I'll get off and I'll be like, woo! Or
Right,
at a Metallica
right.
concert, bouncing off the walls.
The word
Shit, if I
everybody's
just got
looking
back from the
for.
moon, it'd take me a month to calm down, maybe even sleep.
Oh, you'd be so high from going to the moon, you go right back to the moon. Are you kidding me?
Right? See,
That's
it's just,
the word is
yeah.
elation. The word is elation.
Uh-huh.
If you were a human being
Yeah, there's
that
no
actually
way.
went to another planetary body,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, you could just, I
you
mean,
would
you could just
no,
look at those stars and know.
you'd be like the cult of me because I'm a bad motherfucker went to the moon,
Right. I am the
right?
baddest motherfucker ever.
Right. I mean,
I was the first person that walked on the moon. I
right.
walk
I
my
know.
chest would be so puffed out, right?
Oh, come on, man. Come on. You're a god.
Right.
You are literally a god. You've gone to
Right.
another planetary body.
Right. See,
And
it's
and and
bullshit.
and you're like and you're like bummed and like well
Bullshit. The funny
yeah,
one of the
we
funniest
kind of
memes.
like went to the moon.
Right, right.
It was
Right. Like
cool, but it was all
somebody shot my
gray.
dog while I was
Yeah,
there.
it was all gray and shit, so it was kind of a bummer. You know, I mean, what the hell? Come on, dude. You're like fucking the Atlas
And
or some
and the
shit, right?
footage. And the footage, you could tell. And where was the air coming from that was blowing a flag?
Well, so Yeah, well, some. I mean, right? They've got a lot of explainaways on that kind of
And
stuff. But
and seriously, a year ago, last November, this past November, I went to the NASA museum, um, in Alabama,
an interesting
and
place for a NASA museum, by the way,
oh, right,
in
where they were,
Alabama.
it was the Red Rock Arsenal,
Okay.
and they were happening to be building this huge complex, and so this is the biggest base I've ever been on in my life. I've been on quite a few bases, and this actually had its own mountain inside of the base.
Hmm.
So NASA's there, the International Space Station. I went there, and some relics were lying around. And right near NASA, they were putting in a brand new FBI complex that was going to hold 3,600 FBI agents in Alabama near NASA. Wait, what? On an army base, huh? That was empty, by the way, because this was just when the election was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was surreal. I felt like I was in outer space. And anyway, so I was supposed to believe walking around looking at this stuff at this little museum they have there. $25 to get in there, by the way. And and I got to drive the Mars rover from inside this museum. And I'm like,
But of course
yeah,
you did.
sure.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Uh-huh. All right. All right.
And there was a
And then you're like,
micro.
go, go, go,
Do you know
Ghost
that
Racer.
microwaves work
He's
in
a demon
space?
on wheels. Wow, really?
I was
Uh, uh,
howling laughing. I got to admit,
oh
there's
Lord.
one part when you first walk in, and it's like the history of the moon thing. And I got to watch all of it with Kennedy and all this stuff. And I had a
I
tear.
forgot I have a camera over here too. Boo. Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, I think it's all crap.
Well,
I think it's all bullshit.
it's definitely like legend status kind of thing. I tried to do this thing right here,
Oh wait, I have
and
one
and
too. Where
and
do I show?
I was
Oh,
like,
there I am.
yeah, I don't think I. You know what though? But it's no. Well, see, I've got everything behind Resolume though. So
You have what, huh?
everything's behind Resolume.
What does that mean?
Well, the output that you're looking at over here is like uh, the output that actually is on screen right now that's being recorded is my construct, right?
Gotcha.
So I can do all this. Okay, let me. Whoops, damn it, that's not what I wanted to do. Don't press that button; it'll all go wrong. So I can do stuff like this.
Oh, that's cool.
Let me try to doctor this up a little bit. See, I've got a variety of things that I think I had it set up like this. Okay, so there was this. Oh, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just trying to organize all this. All right, like here's an interesting one. Okay, I don't know if you've seen this. Okay, get out of the way. Get out of the way.
Oh, that's cool.
And this. All right, it's a. Have you seen this footage before?
Nope.
This is Suez Canal, and it's some kind of a freighter running down the Suez Canal and just going on its merry way. And
My grandparents did a cruise down this.
okay, and this has been demonstrated. This is put out as a demonstration of look, there's no curvature, and I'm
Right.
like, okay, but why is it flowing south?
Right.
And that's kind of my question. I'm like, I don't know how rivers flow, and I don't know, you know,
I think they all flow south,
the
except I think the Nile once flowed the opposite direction. I think, right?
yeah. So I don't know. I don't know any of this, but this does not. Right, I get it. You don't see curvature, but I don't. Does it tell you anything really?
No,
That I mean, that's your field
I
of
don't get all
vision.
hung up on the flat Earth stuff. I
Yeah.
really,
Well, because
it's such paper fish
it's a
to fry.
con. Because I think it's a con.
Yeah.
I think it's a CIA.
It's noise.
It's an
It's
op.
unnecessary noise. I understand the lies. I think the
Oh, I had
Tartaria
this
stuff's
too.
a lot more interesting than the flat
Oh,
Earth.
the
Oh, look at
Tartaria,
you!
the
My
Tartaria,
dragonfly is with
the
you.
Tartaria stuff. Oh man, the Tartaria stuff. That's very very intense. And
Yeah, it is. Well, how about that video you sent me? That 5 hour long freaking video.
oh, you didn't watch all of them then, huh?
No, I watched that one and I
Oh
started the
man.
second one. And
Oh
after the
boy.
wreck,
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. That dude is
right?
on fire, man. I don't know what. I don't know what.
Right?
I really don't know. That's not the right button. I don't really know what that guy's problem is, but
Problem.
his brain is in some other functioning method because he has connected things that are staggering and I hate to say it, but man, like 3% of what he's presented, I was like, uh oh. I'm like, uh oh, this guy thinks
Right.
oh, I'm like, he had a lot more information to work with, and I think had I seen the same kinds of evidences, I probably would have went there on a lot of those topics as well.
Right.
Um, and the amount and the details of his knowledge, like how many people know what a vernal, if I'm even saying that right, a vernal year is, a solstice to
Good
solstice
Lord,
year, right?
I don't
It
freaking know.
well, it's the top of the solstice all the way around to the top of the solstice. The true celestial year.
Vernacular.
Vernal is that
No,
the
yeah,
right way to say that? I don't know.
I guess
So
yes.
what my conclusion is that okay, so you go back and you look at like how long papers have been around and how long, just like writing what they know about what they believe about the history of writing and such, and the only intact culture that's old enough to even be able to come close to accomplishing what I'm going to describe would be the Chinese. And
Right.
the only way you can really actually demonstrate a a linear timeline in any way is you would have to have the star charts, and
Right.
that's the only way. That's why I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean astrology is not a legitimate science?" I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a
Oh
minute."
yeah, it is.
I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Those are cyclical star charts," and I'm like, So, but the problem is that you would have to have a scribe. You'd have to have the technology and a scribe documenting that information in such a manner that you could actually develop a linear star chart.
Right.
And this is why I think that it's not really going to be fully possible to ever really truly pin down this like calendar conventional years back kind of history
Right.
reality. I don't think that can really be done. I don't think you can because you can play with scale of time too much, and you can play with 0 to 100 is a relative value, right? 0 to 100 can be 6,000 pounds, and 0 to 100 can be 6 pounds.
Right.
So time in reference, especially to calendars, especially corrupted calendars, everybody know the Julian calendar was certainly corrupted. You had to have, was it Gregory, come in and fix the entire calendar
Yeah.
system to try to get it somewhat back in line with the star charts.
No, they did it
And
all on purpose.
I'm sorry, they did it on what?
They all did it all. They did it all on purpose.
Right, right. I mean, so the whole calendar system in relation to people's concept of time is absolutely a construct. So,
Right.
you had mentioned the mud flood Tartaria thing, which I think are actually completely competing ideas, but I think one of them might be ridiculous. But that's why I think what I'm looking at so far, my initial scratch off the label says it looks to me like in the 16th century, something got really monkeyed with. And
Six-
in the 16th century.
I
And
wonder.
that's what I'm seeing. That somewhere in the 16th century, um, somewhere around there was some really serious, intense changes. And I don't know if it was a global incident, it was a mass kill, um, and what I don't see anybody addressing in all of that conversation is man put excuse me out man hours and work output. I mean, I've spent a lot of time steel on stone. I That's what I do for a living. I do tile and stonework. I'm a hard surface installer. Okay, so you've been on jobs where you put somebody on a wet saw and they stand there all fucking day and cut tile, right? And that's with current machinery and et cetera, et cetera. So to say that you go back in time and you build these monolithic granite and limestone structures, I question like you say,
Dude,
okay,
have you? You ever
Here's the
seen pictures of the Alhambra?
yeah. I mean, well, these buildings are all over in antiquity, and it's
I
like
I've been there. You wouldn't believe the work,
right. I know, but
the
that's what I'm
mosaic
saying.
and stuff,
So I'm like
dude.
this isn't hand chisel shit, guys.
Yeah,
So
no, this is
so
big
what
deal. Yeah,
so what I'm getting at is that okay. So you take the available manpower to actually execute that. All right. So you take the sum total of the population. Well, that's no real reflection because in the sum total of the population, you have seniors, you have children, you have and people that are unfit or unskilled to do that kind
right.
of work. Okay. So when you boil that whole thing down, I'm sure some sociological anthropologist or whatever could tell you some more exact number. Pick a number. I mean, it can't be what, maybe 3% of the population? So if you're saying
Right.
the population of whatever, Salt Lake City, okay, in 1850, okay, when they're saying that the Mormon church was built, okay, around that
Mhm.
time, okay, where exactly did you get the manpower to be doing all that shit over there? And
Right.
then all that stuff over here, and then all that stuff over there with all these stone cutters.
Right.
Who was bringing in the fields? And you did all of
Yeah.
that. You did all that business with wagons, and it's like it's really curious, don't you think? It just seemed to
Yeah,
me.
I
It
think
just
so.
seems to me that the industrial work output based on the available population and the skill set just does not add up.
Right.
And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You built what? And you don't have drawings? So how did you do you guys have a drawing of the machine that put that massive piece of stone 40 feet in the air?
Right.
Because I'm thinking to myself like how exactly did you get the goddamn thing up there? I mean,
Yeah, and
I've been on jobs that have had cranes tip over on them on a bunk of tar paper. Seriously,
I was
I
gonna
mean
have a picture of me standing next to one of the bricks, at the Cheops in Cairo. Those were big. You'll see.
oh I know right, and there's
They're massive.
what's the one place like nobody's allowed to go? Is it Bale or no? What the hell is that? What the hell is what that? I'm going to lose the word, but it has monolithic stones that are cut to flawless that are like that were about to
Oh,
get
I don't.
used. It's like wait a minute. This thing is this is not even there is no machinery today that can actually pick this thing up and erect it. And it's what were you guys planning? I get it. It's cut. It's on the ground. But what was the plan with this thing? Right. So there's a lot of fascinating engineering feats that are just baffling. And I don't and being around construction and that kind of work, I find all of it just what a spectacle. And so looking at it deeper, I'm going, yeah, something's
Puzzle
not adding
pieces
up
don't
here.
make sense,
Something of it doesn't add up.
right?
I don't know what it is, and I keep
I
looking
have
at it.
felt that literally my whole life,
Something just don't add up. So
right? Just something is. I've never. I The way I felt, I guess when I was little, the way I understood it is like I don't belong here. There's something wrong with this place, and I don't like it, and I don't belong here.
well, I've said a
But
lot of different things. Like I've said over a long period of time, like it appears that we may be a bacteria. you know, like
right
humans
in
have a
hell,
well,
this is hell,
humans in hell's refrigerator,
right?
we're the mold.
It's fine.
Humans are basically the mold in hell's refrigerator. Sorry, everybody.
Right.
Crack a beer and just say fuck it.
Hey, that's something to aspire, right?
You're gonna move up. One day you'll move up to full on fungus.
Right.
Right. Well, I have said though, however, that Hillary Clinton is worse or is basically the pus oozing from Satan, a pimple on
Ew.
Satan's butt.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's pretty much Hillary Clinton as
I
far as
remember
I'm
she was
concerned.
coughing up that green thing. I about
Oh
threw up.
God, I hope she coughs something hideous and
Yeah.
somebody
Well,
pulls out their Jedi sword and goes "Chwing," and they're done. She's done. Where's a Jedi when you need one? Damn it,
right?
or a grassy knoll for that matter.